David, welcome home. What's it like to be here? Be back.
It's good. It's a whirlwind trip back, but it's always great to be back here talking to people here and getting to see family and friends and have them see the movie last night.
Yeah.
So yeah, very exciting.
Of course, and you being a Sheridan grad, I understand that you went there.
Just got back.
What is it like to go back and, these kids are, well, not just kids, animators. You must give them such joy because I made it.
Right.
What's it like when you go there and you talk to these animators?
It's kind of surreal because it doesn't feel like that long ago that I was one of them, even though it was 20 years now. And I remember being there and having professionals come in and speak to us, and we would sit there and kind of judge them pretty harshly. Are these guys the real deal?
Right.
Like, we're looking for some sort of magical tricks of the trade, secrets that these guys are going to tell us. And, often it really just frankly boils down to you got to do a lot of hard work.
Of course.
And put in the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's great to go back and be able to share a little bit of what I've gone through. And, the staff there is terrific. And the facility keeps growing and growing and growing. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good for you. Captain Underpants. Now, I have to tell you, I have two sons who are now in their 20s, but when they were younger, I couldn't get them to read a book. Just couldn't. It's
Right.
boys. What can I tell you, right? When Captain Underpants came out, couldn't keep them out of their hands.
Awesome.
I was like, thank you, Dav Pilkey. Thank you.
It's amazing how many times you hear those stories.
What is it? Well, first of all, what was your introduction to the character of the books?
I was a little older, so I didn't grow up on them, but I stumbled across the first book in a bookstore about 20 years ago, picked it up, thought, this is fun, started leafing through it, and I think I read about half the book right there in the aisle of the store.
Yeah.
I was just immediately smitten by it, and I was like, I wish I came up with this idea. It's so great. So that was my introduction. Then I had kids, I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they...
Boys?
Boy and girl.
Okay.
Yeah, boy and girl. And they, I introduced them to the books. This was well before I was on the movie.
Yeah.
And then like your son, my son was sort of getting into the stage of reading and in that mode of not sure, is it boring? Is the book boring? Is it harder than his ability? And he was starting to lose interest. So I said, why don't you read these again? And he tore through them. And
Yeah.
it really did excite him.
So what do you think it is about this character that just grabs kids? And adults too, it's a lot of fun.
Well, they're, I think for starters, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, it's a middle-aged man running around in his underpants. And
Who doesn't love that?
and a curtain for a cape, right? I mean, he's an idiot.
Yes.
And he's kind of a sweet, lovable guy at the same time.
Right.
And then you've got these two boys who've created him who think it's the greatest thing in the world that they've done, and then probably the most regrettable decision they've ever made at a certain point because they're constantly doing damage control.
Yeah, exactly.
So the story itself is super simple and really, really sticky, And the characters Dav Pilkey's created are really, they're iconic, they're subversive, they're lovable, and, so I think it's not a shock to me that it's been as successful as it has.
And, it's never too bad when the author of the books is gives you the thumbs up, happy, that you're making this film.
Yeah.
How collaborative was Dave?
He had a lot of input early on, I think, while I was in development, which was honestly more before I came on the movie. We met shortly after I started, and I showed him a bunch of the artwork that we were doing, which he loved, and he... talked him through some of the story changes of what we were up to, and he really, really, he's such a sweet guy and a class act. He really felt that we were capturing the spirit of what he was doing,
Right.
and also was very clear that he doesn't like movies that are just page for page kind of adaptations where there's no surprise. You're just sort of translating from one medium to the other.
Yeah.
So he really wanted to be surprised. He really empowered us to be able to come up with our own business to, make the movie the best version of a Captain Underpants movie we could make. And so it really kind of took the burden off of any pressure, from him. He trusted us.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about the casting because, I can't think of anybody better than Helms.
Right.
Was he kind of your first choice or how did he come on board for that?
Well, a lot of these guys came on board from an initial table read. They, we had worked with casting and they picked a bunch of these people out with our help, and had all of them kind of sit there and read an early draft of the script, and it was super clear that this was the cast, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, you could see the chemistry between, you know, Kevin and Thomas, like, was going to be great. You could tell Ed was already going to nail Captain Underpants.
Yeah.
Nick Kroll, like,
Yeah.
out of nowhere, that accent came out of his mouth, and he pretty much, like, just stole the show right there. So Ed was great. I mean, Ed was, he had the double duty of having to do two characters,
Yes.
right? So it was we had to work to try to figure out the best contrast between the two, you know, to make Krupp this guy you just love to hate, which is really hard to do. And
Yeah.
Ed pulled it off in a great way. And then Captain Underpants, just this big, larger-than-life buffoon who thinks he's the greatest superhero and he's sent to protect the planet.
Yeah, I mean, who needs, you know, all those other ones that are coming out, Captain America? Please, we have Captain Underpants.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
he's got nothing on this.
Exactly.
But when you have such great comedic talent, like, oh my God, like just the guys you just mentioned, how much do you let them just go? Kevin Hart, for goodness sake.
Right.
I mean, wow.
I'd be a fool not to let them go, you know, and I realized that pretty quickly into the first session with each of them. I sit in the room with the actors, so I'm reading, you know, against them and ad-libbing with them to the best of my abilities. And really, I think what it allows them to do is understand what the scene needs to be, but then be able to play, you know. And they're all great writers on top of you know, being great comedians. So they would we'd workshop the scenes in the room, which is rare. You know, you don't often get to do that. And it had kind of both the effect of keeping the movie feeling really fresh and it being filled with ad-libs and improvisations. But it also got them really invested in their characters and into the movie, too.
I can't even imagine. It must have been so much fun. It must have been hard for you to stop laughing and hold
really
back.
Hard. I think I have like permanent teeth marks in my bottom lip from trying not to ruin takes
to
by
hold
laughing.
back. So, of course, this is the first big epic movie. So, you know, a little indication that there could be more.
There may be some hopes for more.
That would be good.
Yeah, there may be some hopes.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes,
We're going to
exactly.
help you get there. I can tell you that. You know, it's such a pleasure to have it to talk to you and to get to meet you. And anything you want to say to any family, friends in Hamilton, you go for it.
Oh, shout out to everybody in Hamilton. Hope all's well.